We've got a special service today for those that don't know. I'm going to be talking about spiritual warfare, and I'm going to lay out a case for spiritual warfare and God's grace. So that's what we're going to do today is spiritual warfare, and we're going to talk about God's grace through it all. About my time in India and how I almost died in India, and then God brought me out. And then I came back to the States, and it was a continuing saga, which we'll talk about here. But I hope you enjoy and you learn something from it. There's no embellishment. Everything is true. I'm not making up anything. I'm not doing anything to make you feel all tingly or nothing like that. Everything is exactly how it happened. As a matter of fact, I have about 140 pages of things that happened. But we will not do it all today. I've condensed it down the best I could, but we're going to, I'm putting it all together because I'm going to put it with my other book. Those that don't know, I have another book that I wrote. It's called Through the Eyes of the Watchman. It's available at, you can go online and find it at Amazon and digital form and all that stuff. But this is going to be the second part of it. That was my life up to a certain point, and this is my life going forward. So it's going to be interesting. So, without any further ado, we're going to get right into what I believe was spiritual warfare on the highest level.
Vamos a entrar en el tema de guerra espiritual en el sentido más alto.
That God chose me for a purpose.
Dios me cogió con propósito.
Not only to go do something for the glory of the kingdom,
no tan solo para hacer algo para el reino de Dios, la gloria de Jesús,
but to go through something,
sino para experimentar algo para él.
Amen. So,
para su gloria.
What we're going to talk about today is my trip, my journey in India.
Hoy vamos a hablar de mi viaje a India.
When I first got ready to go to India, those that know, I've been several times to India. That's our mission field.
Yo he ido varias veces a India y mientras me estaba preparando para ese viaje.
So I'm not a stranger to travel.
No es raro para mí ir a viajar.
And this time though was a different journey.
Pero esta experiencia fue diferente.
So as I got ready to go, I started making preparations. God told me there was going to be a great work in India.
Mientras yo me estaba preparando, Dios me había dicho que iba a haber un trabajo grande allá en India.
So far we have 35 churches.
Allá ya tenemos 35 iglesias.
3 orphanages.
3 orfanatos.
A whole lot of orphans.
Muchos huérfanos.
Yeah, a whole lot of orphans.
Muchos.
Yes, thank you. And we have 6 widows' homes.
Tenemos 6 casas de viudas.
Where we take care of the elderly.
Donde le damos.
And that's just
cuidado a los ancianos.
And that's just a part of what we did.
Eso es parte de lo que hacemos.
So I was going over there to conduct the first Christian wedding in this village.
Yo iba a ir para conducir un matrimonio, una boda allá, la primera en esa ciudad.
As well as visit several villages that's never had Christianity preached in them or ever even seen a white guy.
E iba a India, a ciertas ciudades donde nunca han oído del cristianismo ni han visto un hombre blanco, un gringo.
Yeah, in case you haven't noticed, I am a white guy.
Si no te das cuenta, yo sí soy un gringo.
It don't come much whiter than I am because I'm Scotch Irish and I'm very white. So as I started to get ready to go, I made all the preparations, did all the packing, did all the planning that we usually do for a long trip.
Yo me preparé como hacemos usualmente para un viaje así largo.
And I made ready to go to the Atlanta Fulton County International Airport.
Y me estaba preparando para ir al aeropuerto.
Yeah. Actually, it has a longer name, but we'll just go with the Atlanta Airport, okay? So, I took care of everything. I got my family in order, and I started heading out. And that's usually when things start falling apart, isn't it?
Y ahí es donde todo se va.
So, I got ready, made ready, got to the airport like you're supposed to do, 2 hours early.
Me fui para el aeropuerto 2 horas antes, como se supone que haga.
And got in, got through, and started doing all of the fun TSA stuff that you do.
Y entré y fui por la seguridad y me chequearon.
Shoes on, shoes off, belt on, belt off, jacket on, jacket off.
Quitarse los zapatos, la correa, el jacket.
All the things that scan, beep, 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 you know.
Que te chequean.
Yes, I look like a criminal apparently, because every time I go through, I get wanted.
Aparentemente soy un criminal porque siempre me sacan al lado.
It's like, this is not good enough. They gotta, oh, excuse me, sir, come over here on the side. All that stuff.
No es suficiente levantar las manos, sino me tienen que chequear físicamente.
But I made it through everything, and I got into the international turnstile.
Bueno, ya sí entré, pasé todo.
And I text Diana like I always do. I always text her when I'm in a location or when I'm leaving a location.
Y le mandé mensaje a mi esposa y siempre le mando mensaje cuando entro y cuando me voy de un sitio.
For those that don't know, she is my security blanket.
Ella es mi sábana de seguridad.
I can always depend on her.
Siempre puedo depender de ella.
The rest of the stuff is coming to me, so excuse me if I get a little girly here.
Disculpe la emoción.
Okay, no offense to the girls, because most of y'all can probably beat me up. But. So, as I got in there, I'm texting her, and
Y le estoy mandando mensaje
everything's okay.
y todo está bien.
So the plane pulls in, and we load up, and we get on the plane.
Ahí el avión entra y nos montamos.
And as the plane starts leaving up into the air, it's a cold October day in 2019.
Mientras el avión está cogiendo vuelo, es frío, hay frío en octubre.
The rain was falling against the wings and the windows of the plane as we started our climb.
Y estaba lloviendo mientras estábamos subiendo.
We leveled off and we started heading over. We were going to go through Paris and then on to Mumbai.
Íbamos a cruzar París y Mumbai.
As we got up at cruising altitude, it's a long flight.
Ya cuando estábamos subiendo y bajando bueno, altitud, es un viaje largo.
It's about 11 hours to Paris in the air.
Son 11 horas a París.
And for somebody with knees that hurt, that's a long flight.
Alguien que le duele la rodilla es bien largo.
So I did like a lot of us do, and a lot of people do. I went to the back of the plane.
Fui para la parte de atrás del avión.
And I'm standing there, and I'm stretching, and I'm exercising, and I'm thinking about all the stuff I'm doing in India.
Y estoy parándome, haciendo ejercicio y pensando en lo que voy a hacer en India.
And then the thoughts came to me.
Entonces los pensamientos llegaron a mi mente.
Your family will be 9,000 miles away.
Tu familia va a estar a 9,000 millas.
If something happens to them,
Si algo le pasa,
there's nothing you can do.
no hay nada que puedes hacer.
If something happens to you,
Si algo te pasa a ti,
there's nothing they can do.
no hay nada que ellos puedan hacer.
9,000 mile separation.
9,000 millas de separación.
And first I had to put that out of my mind, right? Right away. No.
Y eso inmediatamente tuve que sacarlo de mi mente.
God has me.
Dios me tiene.
God has my family.
Dios tiene mi familia.
God has my church family.
Dios tiene mi familia de la iglesia.
We're going to be okay.
Y vamos a estar bien.
And as I started praying, I started feeling better.
Y mientras estaba orando me sentí mejor.
This is the first round in spiritual warfare.
Es la primera ronda en la guerra espiritual.
Because the enemy attacks your mind, right?
Lo primero que el enemigo ataca es la mente.
So that's the first place he went.
Ahí es donde él me atacó.
Because he knows I love my family and my church family.
Porque él sabe que yo amo mi familia y mi familia de iglesia.
So as I'm there praying through, so to speak,
Mientras estoy orando,
I look up,
miro para arriba,
and here comes this young Muslim man,
y aquí viene un joven musulmán
full Muslim dress,
que está en el traje de musulmán,
beard,
con la barba,
the whole everything.
todo.
come walking straight at me with a purpose.
Y viene directo hacia mí con un propósito.
And I'm standing here at the back door
Y yo estoy en la puerta de atrás del avión.
of the plane. I got two choices.
Tengo dos decisiones.
One, I can talk to him.
Uno, puedo hablar con él.
Two, I can go out the door.
O me puedo ir.
That's what I end with.
Pero eso no va a terminar bien.
But when he got to me, his purpose
Y cuando me alcanzó su propósito,
was to address a Christian.
era para hablar con un cristiano.
Because when I travel,
Porque cuando yo viajo,
I travel in uniform.
yo viajo en mi uniforme.
And obviously he knew I was a Christian. I mean,
Y obvio, él sabía que era cristiano.
and he came right up to me and started talking.
Y se acercó y me empezó a hablar.
And he was the nicest young man you'd ever meet.
Y era muy buen muchacho.
It's amazing
Me asombra
how much people love one another if you just let them.
cuánto la gente se ama si tú lo dejas.
We're worlds different,
Estamos en diferentes mundos,
but we can still stand face to face and talk.
pero no podemos hablar de frente.
And we talk and we talk
Y nos hablamos y hablamos
the whole way to Paris.
todo ese tiempo a llegar a París.
And as we discussed Jesus
Y mientras hablamos de Jesús
and Muhammad,
y Mohammed,
we talked about God and Allah,
hablamos de Alá y de Dios.
and we talked about the differences and things that unite us.
Y hablamos de la diferencia y lo que se compara.
When we got to make the final descent into Paris
Ya cuando estábamos bajando de altitud a París
and went back to our seats,
y nos regresamos a nuestros asientos,
he looked at me and he said,
él me miró y me dijo,
like King Agrippa said to Paul,
como, I don't speak English, como en grupo le dijo a
said to Paul, he said, you almost persuaded me.
casi me persuadió.
And he smiled and went back to his seat.
Y sonrió y se sentó.
And I knew it was going to be a good mission.
Yo sabía que iba a ser una misión.
So we landed in Paris, and I got on the next plane
Llegué a París, me monté en el otro avión
to Mumbai,
a Mumbai.
because you have to go, there's a lot of different hops that you got to take. So anyway, you don't have to translate all that, but there's a lot of different paths that you got to go through to get where I go in southern India.
Son diferentes aviones que tienes que montarte para llegar a India del Sur.
So we ended up landing in Mumbai, and I was excited
Llegué a Mumbai y
because the weather was hot.
estaba caliente.
It's always hot in India.
Siempre está caliente en India.
Their winter is, they're wearing jackets, and I'm like in short sleeves.
Su invierno, ellos tienen jacket y yo estoy en camisa de manga corta.
They'd be freezing right now in church.
Ahora mismo se estuvieran frizando aquí.
So I got there, and I met my lead bishop and my team.
Llegué ahí y llegué con mi pastor allá.
And we started planning out the course to get down to southern India, right?
Y empezamos a planear el viaje para llegar al sur de India.
So I picked up my carry-on, because everybody knows you have carry-on stuff, right? That's where your toothbrush and things is.
Y cogí mi maleta
And I went to the terminal to get my luggage.
y fui a buscar la otra maleta que traje.
And guess what wasn't there?
Y imagínate lo que no estaba ahí.
My luggage.
Mi maleta.
The only thing I had was the suit I flew in.
La única cosa que tenía era el traje que tenía.
And what bare necessities was in my carry-on.
Y la necesidad de básica que tenía en mi maleta pequeña.
So at this point, I had two choices.
Tenía dos opciones.
I could wait there and try to figure out what was going on, or we could continue with the mission.
Puedo esperar a ver qué pasó o seguir el viaje.
We only had 14 days to complete the entire journey.
En esa misión solo tenía 14 días.
So my lead minister's wife decided to stay.
So la esposa del ministro que estaba ahí se quedó.
And she was a bulldog. She was going to get that stuff.
Ella iba a buscar esa maleta.
She said, I will sit here on this turnstile if it takes all night.
Ella dijo, me voy a quedar aquí hasta la noche si tengo que quedarme.
And make sure. And guess what? She did. It arrived somehow somewhere, and she figured out how to get it.
Y sí, y se quedó y encontró la maleta.
Only problem was I was 2 days away. headed down south.
El problema fue que ya yo me había ido y estaba a 2 días.
And remember, I had a wedding to do.
Y yo tenía una boda.
I don't know if you know anything about Indian weddings, but they're very formal.
No sé si tú sabes cómo son las bodas de India, son muy formales.
Full of pageantry and just the whole 9 yards.
Tienen de todo.
So she had to figure out how to get my luggage to me, right?
Entonces ella tenía que buscar forma de traerme la maleta.
Everybody still with me? You're not bored yet, are you? We ain't at the good part. This is just prelim. Okay, so here we go. So we're heading down in a small SUV.
Entonces nosotros estábamos en una guagua pequeña.
And when I travel overseas, there's no sleep.
Y cuando yo viajo, no hay sueño, no hay descanso.
So I am preaching 3 times a day.
Estoy predicando 3 veces al día.
In 3 different villages.
En 3 diferentes pueblos.
In between times, I'm blessing houses, farmland, fields, babies, and all that.
Y entre esas predicas le estoy ministrando a los bebés, los ancianos.
The only time you sleep is in the vehicle as you're rolling to the next village.
El único descanso que tengo es cuando están viajando a diferentes pueblos.
Or if you're very, very lucky and you're really tired, they'll stop for a few hours and you get to stay in, I'm using air quotes, a motel.
Si tienes suerte, ellos paran por 1 hora y en un motel te quedas.
That may or may not have water.
Que quizás tiene agua.
And the bed is like,
Y la cama.
But you're just so tired, you do what you do.
Pero con todo ese sueño no importa.
But one thing they did have was coffee.
Lo que sí tenían era café.
Indians love coffee.
Los indios le encanta el café.
It's not like the coffee I drink out of the big, it's the little bitty coffee that you take 1 sip and you're awake for like a week.
No es el café grande que bebes con el vasito que te mantiene despierto toda la semana.
Every little roadside place has coffee.
Cada tiendita kiosco tiene café.
Like we stop to get gas at work, and when we do, I get Dr. Pepper.
Cuando yo voy al trabajo aquí, siempre bebo Dr. Pepper.
They coffee.
Ellos beben café.
Coffee, but they know me.
Pero ellos me conocen.
So they carry bottled water and Gatorade for me.
So ellos tienen agua y Gatorade para mí.
And silverware.
Y utensilios.
Because in India, they eat with their hands.
Porque en India comen con la mano.
They just put everything on this one big plate
Ellos ponen todo en un plato.
and mush it together and eat.
Y se lo comen.
Yes. So my bishop knows I do not do that.
Ellos saben que yo no hago eso.
And I do not eat curry.
Yo no como puri.
And I'm in India.
En India,
Everything's spicy.
todo pica.
The air's spicy in
El
India.
aire es pica en India.
They have chili pepper fields everywhere. And they want me to bless the fields. Right? So
Quieren que yo bendiga el campo.
I can walk through the fields,
Yo puedo caminar por el campo,
but I can't eat the stuff.
pero no me puedo comer.
If it sits on a plate long enough, it burns through the thing. That's how hot
Si
it
lo
is.
siento en el plato por mucho tiempo, se quema el plato.
So here I am, over there, in India, in villages where they've never seen an American, especially a white American.
Estoy en India, en los pueblos donde nunca han visto un hombre blanco,
Eating just rice and whatever little things that I can that I know will not destroy me.
comiendo arroz y cosas que no me van a destrozar.
Burn out the bottom of my feet because that's what they're stuff. I mean, it's like it'll go all the way. It's hot.
Si yo me como eso, hasta se quema mi piel.
And when they say mild, no, they don't mean it.
Y cuando dice que no pica,
No, they don't mean it. Their mild is nuclear hot. It is our hot.
Lo que no pica para ellos es lo más picante acá.
So here, I'm just trying to lay a little bit of the foundation to where I was at.
Yo estoy creando una fundación para que sepan dónde yo estaba.
So when I say I go on mission trips,
Cuando digo que voy en viajes,
I go deep in the jungles, not in the big cities, in the little towns.
yo voy profundo en los pueblos pequeños, no en las ciudades.
So we're out on the move, and everything's going fine.
Y ya está, empezamos la misión y todo iba bien.
Then it started.
Entonces empezó.
we got to this one village
llegamos a un pueblo
where we were preaching, and the format to where everything is they'll sing, and I'll do, again, I get to use the air quotes, they'll sing, and they'll use the tambourine and things, but this person sings different than this person, this beat is different than that beat. It's basically what we call a joyful noise unto the Lord. Amen.
El formato de culto es que cantan, pero todo el mundo lleva su propio ritmo con pandereta y todo el mundo está en un tono diferente.
Because remember, most of the places are small, like churches that we built, or they're thatch huts, the woven huts.
Porque acuérdate que estos son pueblos pequeños y nunca han tenido una iglesia así.
They've never had Christianity. They've never had the Lord.
Nunca han tenido cristianismo ni han conocido al Señor.
So we went into this one place,
Entramos en un lugar.
and they did the singing, I did the preaching, and you got to pray for everybody in the entire church, plus people that are coming in from the parking lot, plus anybody driving by, right?
Entonces ellos cantan y yo predico y tienen que orar por cada persona que está ahí, más los que están entrando y más los que están guiando afuera.
Because there's no hospitals.
Porque no hay hospitales.
They're relying on you
Ellos dependen de ti
and God.
y Dios.
But outside of the Christian community,
Pero fuera de la comunidad cristiana,
there are 33.5 million gods and demigods in India.
hay 33 millones dioses y semidioses.
There's somebody you can pray for anything.
Tú puedes orarle a cualquier Dios por cualquier cosa.
You got an ingrown toenail? There's one over here for you.
Te duele un dedo, ahí hay un Dios para eso.
Right? You got problems with your wife? There's one over here you can pray to.
Tienes problemas con tu esposa, hay otro Dios que puede ayudarte.
So this is the environment that we're in.
Ese es el ambiente en donde estamos.
And every village has priests and high temples and high priests, right?
Y cada pueblo tiene un sacerdote y un templo.
And they all come to pray against you.
Y ellos todos vienen a orar en contra de ti.
Just outside of the light in the shadows,
Fuera de donde está la luz, en la oscuridad.
because they're not going to come inside where you're at, right?
Porque ellos no van a entrar de donde tú estás.
So here we are praying in this one village.
Estamos orando en un pueblo.
And as we're getting ready to pray and the prayer line's forming, this family brings in a young boy.
Y cuando estamos orando y empieza la línea, una familia nos trae un nene.
And he's walking real slow with his head down.
Y él está caminando bien lento con la cabeza abajo.
And he's dragging one foot,
Y está arrastrando un pie
and he's drooling.
y se está babeando.
Yeah, and he's speaking in some dialect that is not even the dialect that we're in.
Y entonces está hablando un dialecto que no era del pueblo ese.
And his eyes are jet black.
Y sus ojos son todos negros.
And they bring him up there and they say, my son is possessed.
Y lo traen y dicen, mi hijo está endemoniado.
We would like for you to deliver him.
Queremos que tú lo hagas libre.
But during what we didn't know, and what we found out at the end of the prayers,
Pero lo que no sabíamos, lo que nos enteramos después de la oración,
it was a plant.
que era una planta.
He was possessed,
Él sí estaba endemoniado,
but they weren't there for deliverance.
pero ellos no estaban ahí para que lo liberten.
They were there to attack God's people.
Ellos estaban ahí para atacar el pueblo de Dios.
And as he raised up his head and looked at me, he had a black corded necklace around his neck
Y cuando él me miró tenía un collar todo negro
with a copper pressed disc,
con un disco de cobre
and it had the symbol of their deity.
y tenía el símbolo del Dios que estaba ahí.
My lead minister knew right away what was going on.
El ministro que tengo allá sabía inmediatamente
Because they're
estaba
on.
pasando, porque
They-
él sabe.
They take care of me. It's like, you think you got bodyguards over here? They don't have weapons, but they will throw themselves in the way of something in a minute.
Ellos son mi guardia de seguridad y eso tiran en cualquier peligro para mí.
So as we're praying for him, he starts speaking in the unknown demonic dialect.
Y mientras estamos hablando por él empieza a hablar en lengua demoníaca.
My bishop grabs the consecrated oil and starts pouring it in his mouth.
El ministro que está ahí agarra el aceite y empieza a ponérselo en la garganta.
He stopped pretty quick.
Paró bien rápido el nene.
They cut the thing off of his neck,
Le cortaron el cordón que estaba
the necklace,
en su cuello.
took it outside and threw it away.
Lo botaron afuera
And they had the family escorted out politely.
y sacaron a la familia en Manhattan.
Because again, they had no interest in God. They were the opposite. They were trying to destroy what God had going.
Porque su plan no era conocer de Dios, sino destrozar lo que era de Dios.
Because remember, it's spiritual warfare.
Porque acuérdate, es una guerra espiritual.
And it starts with the mind game.
Y empieza con la mente
And it starts with the enemy,
y empieza con el enemigo,
trying to destroy what God has made.
tratando de destrozar lo que yo creo.
So we went on to the village where we were going to do the wedding.
Entonces nos fuimos al pueblo donde íbamos a hacer la boda.
And we got there early, about 2 days before the wedding started.
Y llegamos 2 días antes de la boda.
And we went in, and the pastor of the church said that they've been having a lot of problems.
El pastor de esa congregación decía que había muchos problemas, que tenían problemas.
There was a major temple and a high priest that was praying against their church.
Y había un sacerdote en ese pueblo, en el templo, que estaba orando en contra de esa iglesia.
And as he prayed against the church, they kept feeling some strange stuff, and he asked us if we would bless the church.
Mientras ese sacerdote oraba en contra de esa iglesia, ellos sentían opresión y le pidieron al pastor que orara para esa congregación.
So I started with my team. We started walking around the church, blessing it and blessing the field, right?
Y con mis miembros empezamos a ungir la iglesia.
And I got this strange feeling, this prompting from God. You've had that prompt from God before, right? You feel, something don't feel quite.
Y el Espíritu Santo me hizo sentir algo.
And God said, He said, to the north, pray to the north. So I was like, which way is north? Okay,
Y Dios me dijo, ora para el norte. Y yo ni sabía dónde estaba el norte.
So we looked north and we started praying.
Lo encontramos y empezamos a orar.
And as I did, I saw in the woods beside the church, everything's woods in this part of India, but in the woods beside the church,
Y en el bosque al lado de la iglesia,
there was black forms and shapes moving back and forth, darting here and there and there, and with your spiritual eye you could see.
y habían sombras negras que se estaban moviendo de lado a lado.
And after we prayed, they ceased to be there and they moved away.
Y mientras orábamos, ellos se fueron y se fueron para otro lugar.
When we came in the house, the house is attached to the church. So when I say the house, it is the church, right? It's like a little room off to the church.
Hay una casa que está pegada a la iglesia.
And as I went in, I talked to the people. I said, have y'all seen anything strange? Have you seen black shadows, for example, moving around?
Y entré en la casa y le pregunté a la gente si ellos han visto esa sombra en el bosque.
And the grandmother just burst out in tears. She was crying.
Y la abuelita que estaba ahí empezó a llorar.
She said, yes, they've been tormenting me every night. I can't sleep.
Y dijo que sí, que la estaban atormentando toda la noche, que no podía dormir.
And I told her, oh, they won't torment you anymore.
Y le dije que ya no la iban a atormentar.
And she was so happy.
Ella se llenó de alegría.
But this is the life of a mission.
Pero esa es la vida de un misionero,
And the life of a missionary out on service.
que está en el servicio de Dios.
And the reason I bring up these couple of examples is I want you to know some of the things that I was dealing with.
Y la razón que te digo eso es porque quiero que tú sepas algunas cosas con lo que yo lidio.
So we prepared for the wedding by going into a town and having a tailor make some clothes.
Y nos preparamos, fuimos a un pueblito donde nos prepararon un traje.
They wanted to make you've seen the Indian coat, the blue coats or the red coats that look like the royalty. They wanted to make me one of those for the wedding.
Ellos querían que me hicieran un traje cultural de los indios.
Which I thought was pretty cool at the time.
Y yo pensé que era bien.
They put a brooch on it and handmade it and all that.
Me pusieron un pedazo de...
I mean, this was a master tailor. I mean, down to the buttons. They picked everything out and he did it. And he did it based on the design of his grandfather who used to make the same type of coats for British when they occupied India.
Y lo hicieron profesionalmente y era basado en un traje del abuelo.
I took that coat and I was very happy.
Me lo pusieron y yo estaba bien feliz.
This was my first big mistake.
Ese fue mi primer error.
This wasn't akin to picking up a teddy bear that was sitting on an IED in Afghanistan.
Esto se iguala a ir a Afganistán y coger un peluche.
You have to understand that things can be cursed.
Tienes que entender que las cosas tienen maldiciones.
Be careful when somebody gives you a present. Ask God, seek God, and pray over it, bless it, and all those kind of things. You say, but that's a little odd or a little out there. No, we're talking about spiritual warfare.
Cuando alguien te regale algo, tienes que orar sobre él y despedirle a Dios que te revele si hay algo ahí.
People can put things on garments. They can write symbols under your bed. They can give you there's all kinds of things, crystals, charms. There's all kinds of stuff out there in the spiritual realm that they can give you, right?
Porque el enemigo usa cualquier bobería para entrar esa maldición a tu casa.
So I took that and some more things that they gave me to give to my family and those kind of things. You know how they do.
Entonces ellos nos regalaron cosas y yo lo iban a regalar a mi familia.
And we went on, so we did the wedding 2 days later.
Entonces ya pasaron unos días y empezamos la boda.
It was a beautiful wedding. I mean, I'm talking, it was beautiful from the garments to all the people that came to the music. Their clothes are very colorful.
La boda era bella. Los colores que usan en India tienen muchos colores.
So after the wedding, we went out and we got something to eat and we started heading back to the room that they had for us.
Después de la boda salimos a comer y entramos a un cuarto.
And I started getting tired.
Y me empezó a dar sueño.
I never get tired.
A mí nunca me da sueño.
And I started getting afraid.
Y me empezó a dar miedo.
I'm never afraid.
A mí nunca me ha dado miedo.
Especially when I'm working for the Lord.
Especialmente en las misiones de Dios.
So I just shrugged it off to the rigid schedule that we had.
Yo pensé que era por todos los días que estaba ahí.
We started moving from that place. I woke up the next morning.
Empezamos a movernos de ese lugar, pero me levanté por la mañana.
To get ready to go to our second to the last stop. We had 2 more stops before we got to the main city to leave.
Para ir al penúltimo lugar, al pueblo donde íbamos a terminar el viaje.
Stay with me, I'm laying some groundwork here. I'm not just talking, but I want you to know. So, as we started heading out, I woke up that morning, I felt weird. You ever woke up and just felt weird?
Me levanté esa mañana y me sentí raro.
I mean, you don't really know why, you just kind of feel weird.
No sé por qué, pero me siento raro.
So we were going to baptize a group of new Christians in a rural lake that nobody knew of in this farm.
E íbamos a bautizar cristianos nuevos creyentes en un lago donde nadie sabía dónde estaba.
As we got to this place where we wanted to baptize people, everything seemed okay. It did. It was a good baptism. We had a great time.
Y llegamos y los bautizamos y todo estaba bien.
But remember, it's spiritual warfare again. And this is where it starts.
Tenemos que acordar que es una guerra espiritual, entonces ahí empezó.
So as we get ready to take an intermission and get into where it starts and how I brought and everything came back to America and how I almost died and all that kind of stuff, I'm going to ask Sister Diana to bring up my scriptures here. And I want you to, these are my backing for what I have.
Estos son los versos que voy a usar hoy en mi prédica.
So the first one we're going to talk about is Ephesians 6:12. We're just going to read them because these are my backdrops to what's about to happen.
El primero va a ser Efesios 6:12.
So it says, "For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places.
Porque no tenemos lucha contra sangre y carne, sino contra principados, contra potestades, contra los gobernadores de las tinieblas de este siglo, contra huestes espirituales de verdad en las regiones celestes.
Okay, let's move. Then we're going to go to 2 Corinthians 10:4.
Segunda de Corintios 10:4.
This is something you need to remember when you come up against spiritual warfare, because we tend to freak out. First thing we try to do is try to put, that first is like, oh, that's not real, right?
En la guerra espiritual muchas veces no creemos, decimos que no es real.
Second thing is there must be a logical explanation for this.
La segunda es que tratamos de explicarlo.
Third thing is, well, I got to go see my doctor because he's going to give me a pill.
La tercera es que vamos a un doctor para que nos dé una pastilla.
And then we get to God.
Y el último, donde llegamos al último.
So let's flip it and let's go with God is first.
Tenemos que cambiar eso y llegar a Dios primero.
Hallelujah. So 2 Corinthians 10:4
Segunda de Corintios 10:4
says, for the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty to the pulling down of what? Strongholds. Where was I? In the middle of a big old stronghold, right?
Porque las armas de nuestra milicia no son carnales, sino poderosas en Dios para la destrucción de fortalezas.
But remember, you can do a lot of good stuff for God, right?
Podemos hacer muchas cosas buenas para Dios.
But unless you refresh spiritually and physically, you're getting weaker.
Pero al menos que nosotros no nos
Get weak,
refresquemos
no?
espiritualmente, no, nos vamos a debilitar.
You get weaker and you start thinking, I'm doing this great thing, I'm doing real good, but you don't really take care of yourself, and you start getting run down. Next thing you know, there's problems.
Nos debilitamos y no nos cuidamos y entonces llegan los problemas.
So then, it's a mind game, right? First thing he does is attack your mind.
Es un juego de mente.
See, the enemy, he's been around for a long time.
El enemigo ha estado por muchos años.
He came to steal, kill, and destroy.
Él vino a robar, destruir y matar.
And he does it physically and mentally.
Lo hace físicamente y mentalmente.
He plays chess.
Él juega chess.
In chess, you think 3 moves ahead, right?
Ahí siempre tiene que estar 3 pasos adelante.
I must confess,
Tengo que confesar.
at this time, I was playing checkers.
Gente que estaba jugando otro juego.
That's when I got in trouble.
Ahí es donde me metí en problemas.
But it goes on to say, casting down imaginations and every high thing that exalts itself against the knowledge of God, bringing into captivity every thought.
Yes.
Captivity, every thought, right? To the obedience of Christ.
El 5 dice, derribando argumentos y toda altivez que se levanta contra el conocimiento de Dios y llevando cautivo todo pensamiento a la obediencia a Cristo.
So going forward, just keep that in mind, because we're getting ready to move now.
Vamos a empezar.
Okay, 2 Corinthians 5:7 says what? We walk by faith and not by sight.
Segunda Corintios 5:7 dice que
And as I get deeper into my story, you'll see where you have to walk by faith and not by sight.
andamos por fe y no por vista.
All right, 2 Corinthians 5:8 says, we are confident, I say, and willing rather to be absent from the body and to be present with the Lord.
El 8 dice, pero confiamos y más quisiéramos estar ausentes del cuerpo y presentes al Señor.
Wherefore we labor that whether present or absent, we may be accepted of Him.
Por tanto, procuramos también, o ausentes o presentes, serle agradables.
Okay, so I got one more,
Uno
and this will be the last scripture that we'll use them as we go through.
más.
And the Lord, He it is that doeth go before thee. So it's God going before us, right? He will be with thee. He will not fail thee, neither forsake thee. Fear not, neither be dismayed.
Deuteronomio 31:8 dice, y Jehová va delante de ti. Él estará contigo, no te dejará ni te desamparará. No temas ni te intimides.
And what did I say was the first thing that when I started feeling the thing come was fear.
Lo primero que dije que me llegó a la mente fue el miedo.
It's the enemy. And I've been in some sticky situations for the Lord before.
Es el enemigo, porque yo he estado
I don't frighten easily.
en situaciones donde me tenía que dar miedo, pero yo no me asusto así rápidamente.
But I'll tell you, in a little while, we'll get to why the fear was so strong.
Voy a entrar en por qué me dio ese miedo.
So we baptized the people in the lake.
Bautizamos a los nuevos creyentes.
And then as we were coming out, we ran into a gentleman that had a cart and 2 water buffalo.
Nos encontramos con un hombre que tenía un carrito y 2 búfalos.
You ever seen water buffalo before?
¿Han visto un búfalo?
They're ugly and they're mean.
Son feos y son rudos.
They always got stuff dripping out of the nose, and it's.
Siempre tienen cosas saliéndose de la nariz.
But it was pretty cool, and we took pictures and we moved on.
Pero nos sacamos fotos y seguimos.
I'm just telling you this because everything seems calm, right? It's like the calm before the storm.
Solo te lo digo porque todo estaba bien.
So one of the last stops we had was deep in the jungle.
El último padre que teníamos era en el bosque, metido en el bosque.
No road signs,
No había calle,
just a post.
solo
And you turn off on this trail.
son
That you go down and there could be tigers and lions and tigers and bears, oh my, everywhere. You know, I'm talking jungle.
estamos hablando bien metidos en el bosque donde hay animales.
I'm not talking about woods, I'm talking jungle.
Hablando de
So we got to this small village, and the church that they had just made was woven sticks together to make the walls.
Llegamos a un pueblo donde la iglesia era hecho de palitos.
And grass roof.
Tenía grama como el techo.
And the people had little plastic crosses that somebody had gave them from an Indian church.
Y la gente ahí, la congregación tenía cruces de plástico.
And we were praying with them, and we had service with them, and everything seemed to be going well.
Empezamos el servicio y todo iba bien.
Again, the high priest and everybody were praying against us, which is normal.
Y como siempre los sacerdotes y en el templo estaban orando en contra de la iglesia.
But when they brought the food, it was chicken and little squares of chicken.
Cuando trajeron comida era cuadrito de pollo.
And everybody was eating and everything was fine.
Y todo el mundo estaba comiendo y todo estaba bien.
And I was eating because that's my wife, I can eat.
Yo estaba comiendo porque yo siempre como.
Yes. But I ate one, and as I ate, it tasted metallic and strange, and like, you know, something weird was on it. And I'm like, yeah, this just tastes weird. You know, I'm not thinking everybody's, you know, doing everything, but it's just one out of all of them.
Me comí uno, pero para mí sabía raro. Entonces seguí comiendo porque eso no era uno.
Remember, we're forming a case for spiritual warfare here.
Acuérdate que estamos haciendo un caso en contra de la guerra espiritual.
So as we left that village, it was a great time. We prayed for people. We did a lot of stuff. But as we left that village,
Oramos por la gente y mientras salíamos de ese pueblo,
we went to a small motel, again for the air quotes,
entramos en un motel pequeño
and I went to sleep.
y me dormí.
It was very restless sleep.
No dormí bien.
I saw all night, I saw crazy things in my dreams.
Por la noche vi muchas cosas en mis sueños.
And when I woke up, I was afraid.
Y cuando me levanté tuve mucho miedo.
I'm never afraid.
Nunca me da miedo.
And there was voices
Escuchaba voces
in my ear, in my everywhere. It seemed audible to me.
para mí que lo escuché físicamente.
I'll leave that up to discussion.
Eso, lo que tú pienses, puedes pensar lo que yo escuché.
But it kept saying, God has forsaken you.
Y me decían que Dios me ha abandonado.
God is not with you.
Dios no está contigo.
Be afraid.
Que te tiene que dar miedo.
You're going to die here in India, 9,000 miles away.
Vas a morir aquí en India a 9,000 millas de tu familia.
And I had sweat. I was soaking sweat.
Y estaba sudando.
And I touched my head, and when I did, it was too hot to touch.
Y me toqué la cabeza y tuve fiebre.
It was very high fever.
Un fiebre bien alto.
So I called for the rest of the team,
So, llamé a mi equipo
and we began to pray,
y empezamos a orar.
and things settled out.
Y todo se calmó.
But I still had a bad fever, and I was very weak.
Pero todavía tuve fiebre y estaba bien débil.
On the way back to Hyderabad, which is the main city we were leaving out of, we had one more stop.
Ya cuando íbamos a regresar a la ciudad grande, donde ya no íbamos,
It was a church that we built restrooms in.
paramos en una iglesia donde nosotros construimos baños.
And the guys are going, restrooms? I mean, okay, but
Y el equipo lo cuestionaron, pero siguieron.
for a lady, if there's restrooms in the church, you don't have to go home.
Pero por ejemplo, para una mujer es más fácil tener baños en la iglesia y no tiene que ir a casa a usar el baño.
She can just enjoy the whole service.
Ella puede gozarse el culto entero.
See, it's the little things that make the biggest difference.
Son las cosas pequeñas que hacen la diferencia.
Things you wouldn't even think about.
Las cosas que uno ni piensa.
Restrooms,
Baño,
sandals,
sandalias,
things like that.
cosas así.
So I got there, but the problem was I couldn't get out of the car. I was too weak.
Llegamos, pero el problema era que no me podía salir del carro porque estaba bien débil.
And everybody had walked. There's people that have walked for miles, hours.
Y en la congregación hay gente que caminaron horas para llegar ahí,
To hear me speak and dedicate these restrooms.
para escucharme hablar y bendecir esos baños.
So I called the team and they helped me out of the car.
So, mi equipo me ayudó a salirme del carro.
And we walked over slowly to the place where we were going to talk.
Y lentamente caminamos al lugar donde íbamos a predicar.
And at this point, everything became like a fog.
Y empezó, empecé a ver neblina.
The colors blurred all together into just one blob of stuff, right?
Todo se mezcló en mi vista. Los colores se mezclaban.
All I could think in my mind was one step, two step, three step, breathe, pray, focus. One step, two steps. That was as far as I could get. Three steps. Because go ahead.
Lo único que podía pensar era un paso, dos pasos, tres pasos, para, respira, ora, un paso, dos pasos, tres pasos, para, respira, ora.
For the remainder of my journey, that was my mission. One step, two steps, three steps.
Esa era mi misión. Un paso, dos pasos, tres pasos.
So I was trying to remember what I had prepared to say.
Y estaba tratando de acordarme de lo que preparé para hablar.
I couldn't
No pude.
remember it. It's in the past of my mind. Spiritual warfare, the first round.
La guerra espiritual, el primer paso de esta guerra es en la mente.
Behind my ears, there became such a pressure.
Detrás de mi oído empezó una presión.
Like when you go up in a plane and you can't pop your ears, you've ever felt that kind of pressure?
Como cuando subes en un avión y no puedes sacar esa presión de tu oído.
But it wouldn't relieve. You couldn't do anything to stop it.
No podía hacer nada para sacar esa presión.
My ears were ringing,
Mi oído tenía un ruido
and the voices kept saying, your God has left you.
y las voces me decían,
Your
te
God
abandonó,
has forsaken you.
te abandonó Dios.
You're going to die here in India,
Vas a morir aquí en India,
away from your family and friends.
lejos de tu familia y tus amigos.
But all I could think of was one step, two steps, three, pause, breathe, pray. That was my world at that time.
Y lo único que estaba en mi mundo en ese momento era un paso, dos pasos, tres pasos, para, respira, ora.
Fortunately, I had my tablet with me, and I had what I was going to say, outlined.
Afortunadamente yo escribí todo en mi tableta.
As long as I looked at the words, I could say them. But as soon as I closed it, it was gone.
Mientras lo miraba, yo podía decirlo, pero cuando cerraba la tableta, no me acordaba de nada.
So I got there and they helped me up. The restrooms were up a stair in the back of the church, and I was walking up and they were helping me up there.
Para llegar al baño tenía que subir a una escalera y mi equipo me subía.
And I cut the ribbon on. They put a ribbon on everything.
Corté la cinta que tenían.
And after that, I don't remember how I got back down the stairs or inside the church. It was just God.
Después de eso no me acuerdo cómo bajé la escalera ni entré a la iglesia. Eso fue Dios.
And I thought to myself, maybe I need to see a doctor.
Y me dije yo mismo que tenía que ver un doctor.
But where we were, there was no hospitals,
Pero donde estábamos no había doctores,
no doctors.
no hospitales.
So I said, well, I might as well stay for the ceremony. The only thing I can do is go back to my room and lay there and sweat.
Dije, mejor me quedo aquí en el servicio porque lo único que puedo hacer es irme para el cuarto y sudar.
So I did the best I could because our lead minister told me if I didn't say anything, these people that traveled for hours would be disappointed.
Hice lo mejor que pude porque los ministros que estaban ahí a mi equipo me dijeron que esta gente viajaron para escucharme orar.
And I'm there in God's service, right? So I don't want to disappoint.
En el servicio de Dios no quería fallarles.
So I did the best I could.
Hice lo mejor que pude.
I have no idea what I said.
No tengo ni idea de lo que dije.
They seemed to enjoy it.
Yo le gustaba.
So it must have been God, right?
Tenía que ser Dios.
Either that or they were really polite.
Eso o estaba muy nice.
Yeah. They walked 2 hours to dinner. Yeah. So I'm praying it went over well.
Yo espero que dije algo.
We got back to the room, getting ready to go to the major city so I could finish out and head home.
Llegamos al cuarto preparándonos ya para ir a la ciudad, para ya irme a casa, regresar.
I laid down, and as I laid down, the voices started again, and the voice said, I am fear, and I am here to torment you.
Cuando llegué al cuarto me asusté y empezaron las voces de nuevo, y una de ellas dijo que yo soy el miedo, el temor, y estoy aquí para atormentarte.
Later on, I talked to my wife,
Después hablé con mi esposa,
and she reminded me of a dream or vision God had gave me before.
y ella me acordó de una visión que Dios me había dado.
Those that don't know me or have no experience with me, God shows me things in visions and dreams. I've seen stuff all my life.
Ustedes que no me conocen, Dios me muestra cosas, he visto cosas de toda mi vida.
I wrote a book about it. It's called Through the Eyes of the Watchman. You can get it online if you want to know about me.
Escribí un libro que se llama Por los lentes de una atalaya. Si quieren comprarlo, está en todo lado.
God took me to heaven when I was 17, so I know heaven's real. So these voices that say, it's not real, you're all this stuff that's tormenting my mind, I know the truth.
Yo, a los 17 años, Dios me llevó para el cielo. Entonces yo sé que es real. Entonces, por eso no le creía a esas voces.
But everything's so foggy at this time, it's hard for me to distinguish reality from the spiritual realm.
Pero tenía tanta neblina en la mente que se me hizo difícil discernir entre el mundo espiritual y lo físico.
It's almost like things flipped. The spiritual realm was reality, and reality was the spiritual realm. Or the dream became reality, and reality became the dream. It was crazy.
Era como, no podía distinguir si era algo espiritual o físico. Todo se cambió.
So from then on, every 15 minutes, I would wake up with a sensation of falling, like the first drop on a roller coaster. You know how that first drop is? And it would wake you up with a start. And as you woke up with a start, you're looking around trying to figure out where you are real quick. But I was shaking and covered with sweat, and my head was so hot, I couldn't touch it. It was just so hot, like a major fever.
Cada 15 minutos mientras descansaba me levantaba como si me estuviera cayendo y me levanté de repente sudando mucho y con una fiebre que ni podía tocarme la cabeza.
So after that, I tried to get up, but I couldn't get up. But then I managed to get out of bed, and then I went into my routine. 1 step, 2 steps, 3. And then you got to breathe and stabilize yourself so you don't fall over. And then, so from that moment on, this is where things really get deep.
Y logré pararme de la cama y empezar la rutina de un paso por paso, 3 pasos, para, respira, ora y tratar de no caerme.
We made it to the big city, Hyderabad. There's millions of people in that city.
Llegamos a la ciudad grande donde hay millones de personas.
And it was evening, and I was gonna fly out the next day.
Ya era de noche y el próximo día me iba a ir.
And as we got ready to make preparations for our room, everybody wanted to go out and eat.
Y mientras nos estábamos preparando, haciendo las preparaciones y buscando un cuarto, todo el mundo quería salir a comer.
Except for me, I just wanted to live.
Yo solo quería vivir.
But they took me anyway, because you gotta eat to keep your strength up. Your strength's down, you gotta eat. Yes, sir. I'm
Me
on the
llevaron
way.
porque para tener fuerza tienes que comer.
So I went with them to eat, and as we went out, a major celebration started taking place.
Cuando salimos a comer, una celebración grande empezó.
It was the celebration of two of their major deities over there, Hindu deities.
Era una celebración de dos de los dioses más grandes allá.
So everybody around started appearing and filling up all of the streets and all of the rooms and all the motels and all the restaurants with the face paint and all the stuff and the symbols of their deity, and everybody's dancing around and praising and worshiping all their gods and all that stuff. And I'm thinking, 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. All of this is going on the last day as I was ready to fly out.
Entonces empezaron la gente a llenar las calles, los cuartos con las caras pintadas, haciendo bailes para el Dios. Y lo único que yo podía pensar era 1 paso, 2 pasos, 3 pasos, tratando de vivir. Y todo esto está pasando en el último día, ya cuando me iba.
So I laid down in my bed after we ate. I managed to get back to the room, and I laid down, and I'm covered with sweat.
Después de comer llegamos de nuevo al cuarto y me acosté lleno de sudor.
And I said, God, you gotta help me.
Y le dije a Dios, me tienen que ayudar.
And his word came to me, this is not unto death.
Y escuché su voz que me dijo, esto no es para muerte.
So while millions of Hindus danced in the street,
Entonces mientras millones de los indios empezaron a bailar para Dios,
I took my cross off,
me quité mi cruz,
put it in my hand,
me la puse en la mano,
took my phone,
agarré mi teléfono
and I texted Diana.
y le mandé mensaje a mi esposa
And I said, I'm not doing good.
y le dije que no me está yendo bien,
I'm not feeling well.
no me siento bien.
Can you have the church pray?
Háblale a la congregación para que oren por mí.
I couldn't tell her the full extent because I didn't want to worry her. I'm 9,000 miles away.
No quería preocuparla, solo no le dije todo lo que estaba sucediendo.
And she takes back, it's going to be all right.
Y ella me mandó que todo iba a estar bien.
Look.
Y me amaba.
So I took that text where she said, I love you, in one hand,
Y di el mensaje con el teléfono en una mano
and my cross in the other.
y la cruz en la otra.
And I made it through that night.
Y viví esa noche, sobreviví.
And I woke up the next morning,
Me levanté por la mañana,
still in a fog,
todavía con la neblina,
still miserable,
miserable,
but I was alive.
pero vivo.
And the festival was over.
Y ya paró la celebración.
And all the dark shadows that was around my room and everywhere else is gone.
Y las sombras que veía en el cuarto y afuera se fueron.
And I said, God,
Y le dije a Dios,
they're not going to let me on a plane with a high fever.
no me van a dejar en ese avión con una fiebre.
Remember, this is BC before COVID.
Esto es antes de COVID.
COVID has not become a thing yet.
COVID no existía.
So I prayed
Oré
and my fever went down.
y el fiebre bajó.
I could touch my head and it was cool.
Pude tocar mi cabeza nuevamente.
So I know you guys were praying for me.
Yo sé que mi congregación estaba orando por mí.
I could feel the strength of God's people.
Sentí la fuerza del pueblo de Dios.
And I was able to think again.
Y pude pensar nuevamente.
And I gathered my things and I went to the airport.
Agarré todas mis cosas y me fui al aeropuerto.
And I had no problem getting through the turnstiles and all of that stuff. I had all my clothes because remember I told you she found them and she tracked us down 2 days away. And so I had all my stuff and I was going home.
Ya tenía todas mis cosas y ya me iba a mi casa.
I was going home.
Ya iba a regresar.
And as I made my way to the airport,
Y mientras seguía en el aeropuerto,
I was showing my passports and all that stuff like everybody's supposed to.
estaba enseñándole todos mis documentos.
I had no problem.
No tenía problema.
And I was able to board the plane.
Me monté en el avión.
And we headed off towards Mumbai and then Heathrow, which is in London.
Entonces íbamos para Mumbai y Inglaterra.
And with my cross in my hand and my cell phone for Diana said she loved me and other.
Y con mi cruz en la mano y con el mensaje de mi esposa que decía que me amaba en la otra.
I fell asleep on the plane
Me dormí en el avión.
and I woke up at Heathrow.
Me levanté en otra ciudad.
How did I get through Mumbai?
Como ni me acuerdo llegando a Mumbai.
I had to change planes in Mumbai and everything else. I have no idea to this day how I got from one spot to the other.
Tenía que llegar a Mumbai y cambiar de aviones, pero no sé cómo llegué al otro país.
But by the grace of God, I did.
Pero por la gracia de Dios llegué.
And then I landed back in Jackson International Airport in Atlanta
Y llegué a Atlanta, al aeropuerto de Atlanta.
after the long flight.
Después de ese vuelo largo.
I barely remember it, customs or any of the things, because my mind was just, if I saw the words, I could say them. But if I didn't see the words, I couldn't say it. I couldn't remember. It's like my short-term memory was gone.
No me acuerdo de nada, lo único que me acuerdo, no podía ni acordarme hablar bien, solo leía las palabras, pero se me olvidaba todo.
After I got there, I always, like I said, I always called and text my wife because we're a team.
Como dije, llegué y llamé y le mandé mensaje a mi esposa, porque somos un equipo.
And I told her I loved her.
Dije que la amaba.
And I was heading home. And she said, "You going to drive home tonight?" And I said, "I'm already on the road, heading home."
Y ya me iba para casa y me preguntó si iba a ir a la casa y yo dije que ya iba de camino.
So when I got home, it was late and I was tired.
Cuando llegué a casa ya era tarde y estaba muy cansado.
And I tried to go to sleep.
Y me traté de dormir.
And every 15 minutes, it was like somebody dropped me. And I was with a jolt.
Y cada 15 minutos en mi sueño me levantaba como si alguien me lo hubiese tirado de alto.
And I would be speaking and fighting and warring and because Diana would be like, "Who are you talking to?" And I don't know. When I woke up, I don't know who I was talking to, but I was talking.
Y aparentemente estaba peleando en contra de alguien. Mi esposa me preguntaba con quién estoy hablando. ¿No?
And
Yo no sabía.
fear and doubt and all of these things are telling me, God has forsaken you. You're going to die now of something that you contracted in India. It's over for you. You're out. You're done.
Y el temor y la duda me decían que Dios me había abandonado, que voy a morir de una infección que me dio en India.
And Diana reminded me of a dream that I had.
Y Diana me acordó de un sueño que tuve.
Before, early on in my life, I saw a vision of a huge demon called doubt.
Antes, en mi vida, más temprano en mi vida, vi una visión de un demonio que era la duda.
It was the enemy's weapon to come against me, to fight against me, is what I felt.
Eso era un dardo del enemigo que usaba para pelear contra mí.
Well, later on in life, not too long before I went to India, I had another dream of another demon.
Y después cuando fui para India de nuevo, tuve otro sueño con otro demonio.
And that demon's name was fear.
Y su demonio era el temor.
It was, it looked kind of like a chimpanzee in a purple nightgown.
Se parecía como un mono en un traje violeta.
Right? It had a gold chain.
Tenía una cadena de oro.
I've been told by people that sometimes they remember their former life, so they dress the way they used to, and then other people say they're trying to look human. It's just a whole lot of, we're not in a theological discussion today. I'm just telling you what I saw.
Yo solo estoy diciendo lo que vi.
So she reminded me of this. Remember in India, the two things that plagued me, doubt and fear. I've never been afraid before. Never. And it kept on and it kept on and it kept. So I woke up and I'm like, man, I was covered with sweat. I was sweating so much she would have to change the sheets every morning because I'd sweat that much.
Cada noche estaba sudando tanto que mi esposa toda la mañana tenía que cambiar el traje de la cama.
So as I tried to get up and I couldn't, I was just so weak.
Y traté de levantarme, pero estaba muy débil.
And I kept getting weaker and weaker as a couple of days went by.
Y mientras los días pasaban, me debilitaba más.
Because I thought I was going to get better, I'm home. You always get better when you're home.
Yo pensé que me iba a mejorar porque ya estaba en casa.
And so I didn't though. I got so weak and I knew I had to go to the emergency room.
Yo sabía que tenía que ir ya al hospital, a la sala de emergencia.
While I was in Hyderabad,
Mientras estaba en otro pueblo,
I was so sick that my team took me to a clinic.
estaba tan enfermo que mi equipo me llevó a una clínica.
Yes, and there was a doctor there that didn't speak any English, but my translator was able to get me through it.
Y había un doctor que no hablaba nada de inglés, pero mi traductor habló conmigo.
They did tests,
Hicieron exámenes.
and they said, you have typhoid fever.
Me dijeron que yo tengo fiebre de typhoid.
That's why you're sick. You have typhoid fever.
Por eso estás enfermo.
So they gave me antibiotics.
Y me dieron antibióticos.
So that was my first brush with the medical profession. No offense.
Eso era mi experiencia con la hospitalidad.
I had typhoid fever.
Tenía ese fiebre.
At least I had something to fight.
Pero por lo menos me dieron antibióticos para pelear en contra de ella.
So when I got home and I was so weak and we decided to go to the emergency room.
Y ya cuando estábamos en Estados Unidos, llegamos a la sala de emergencia.
So I couldn't get up.
Y no me pude levantar.
And as I struggled to get up and everything,
Mientras trataba de levantarme.
God gave me the strength and Diana helped me so we could get to the car.
Dios me dio la fortaleza y mi esposa también me ayudó para llegar al carro.
We called the ambulance. You called 911 because, I was that sick.
Ella llamó a la ambulancia porque estaba tan enfermo.
And as she took me to the hardtop, where we live in the country,
Donde nosotros vivimos en el campo,
right? So we live in the country.
vivimos en el campo.
It takes about 40 minutes for the ambulance to get to us.
Para que llegar a la ambulancia son 40 minutos.
And you have to meet him at the hardtop.
Y tienes que encontrarte con él en otro lugar.
So we got up there and we're waiting on the ambulance to arrive.
Llegamos ahí, estamos esperando que llegue la ambulancia.
Everybody still with me? You okay?
Aquí.
Okay. All right. We're getting to this stuff. Well, that was pretty good, but this is better. So I got to the hardtop up there.
Estamos esperando la ambulancia.
And the ambulance arrived.
Ya llegó.
And when they showed up, they started asking like 10,000 questions like they usually do.
Me preguntaron 10,000 preguntas.
All I'm going to do is go to the hospital.
Yo solo quiero llegar al hospital.
I mean, I didn't want to write a book. I didn't want to, talk a novel out. I want to go to the hospital.
No quería escribir, no quería llegar al hospital.
But they have a whole bunch of questions they had to ask.
Pero tienes que preguntarme eso.
And it kind of frustrated Diana, of course.
Y mi esposa se frustró.
It would have frustrated me as well.
También a mí.
Like I said, she's my rock. She's there.
Ella es mi ropa, ella está ahí conmigo.
And she said, look, they said you had typhoid fever in India, and when she said that, everybody's eyes got big, and they started backing up.
Ella le explicó lo que me dio en India. Entonces todo el mundo se empezó a alejar de mí.
And they said, we don't know how to handle this protocol.
Y dijeron que ellos no tenían un protocolo para lidiar con eso.
So they made some calls, and they found out what the procedure was, and they came back this time in full PPE. You know what that is, right? Personal protection equipment. Like they were dead.
Ellos llamaron y estaban buscando cuál era el protocolo para llevarme al hospital, y entonces vinieron con todo cubierto.
So they took me to one of the hospitals in town. We won't name the name.
Me llevaron a un hospital aquí en la ciudad.
And they took me into the emergency room.
Y me llevaron a la sala de emergencia.
And they started running tests on me because remember, I have typhoid fever.
Y me empezaron a dar exámenes.
Yes. So they're doing all these tests. Meanwhile, the voices are screaming in my head. Your God has forsaken you. You're going to die. This is not going to happen. And you're going to be left here. And you're going to die in an emergency room. Your family's going to have to figure out how to live. I mean, just loud. I'm drowning out everything in my head. These voices are ringing in my head. I'm trying to focus, but I can't think. And all I can think of is what I did in India, the 1, 2, 3. I just had to stay focused on something, but I couldn't really focus on anything. And so they come in and they were doing all these tests.
Mientras pasaba todo esto, las voces en mi mente gritaban que yo iba a morir, que mi Dios me abandonó, que mi familia se iban a quedar solos. Y trataba de enfocarme en lo que hice en India, en un paso, 2 pasos, 3 pasos.
They said, okay, we're going to do one more test. And they got this Q-tip that was about that big around. You see those Q-tips and they shove it up your nose? It takes 2 hands. That's what it seemed like.
Y me hicieron un examen donde sacaron un Q-tip y me lo metieron a la nariz.
Right. So when they did that, and they took off, and they came back and they said, Mr. Garner, you don't have typhoid fever.
Cuando se fueron y hicieron esos exámenes, regresaron y le dijeron que no tenía esa fiebre.
There's no antibodies, no nothing, no typhoid fever at all, no residue. You were misdiagnosed.
Me dieron un diagnóstico erróneo.
What you have is a bad case of the flu.
Lo que tenía era influenza.
Bad flu.
Uno que me dio bien malo.
And I'm like, no, this is not the flu.
Yo dije, no puede ser.
They said, go home, drink plenty of fluids, in a couple of days you'll be right as rain.
Me dijeron que
You ever
fuera
hear
una
that?
cosa, que bebiera mucho líquido y que iba a estar bien.
So we reluctantly went home.
So nos fuimos para casa.
And guess what? 2 days later, I was not right as rain.
Y 2 días después estuve peor.
Meanwhile, the whole time, things are screaming in my ears.
Mientras pasa todo esto, las voces me siguen gritando.
I've got this high-pitched ringing and this pressure behind my ears, like an airplane when you can't pop.
Tengo una presión y un ruido en el oído.
The fever was gone.
La fiebre se fue.
It went away when I was coming back on the airplane. Like I said, it was gone. God let me get there.
Yo me pregunté al aeropuerto y ahí se fue.
But the sweats and the terror and all that stuff was still there.
Pero seguía sudando.
The shaking, the uncontrollable shaking at night. I would wake up just shaking and soaked in sweat. 15 minutes, I could clock it. We could clock it to me. It'd be 15 minutes. You're going to wake up all freaked out. And here I am arguing with something that I don't even know what's there in a language that's my prayer language. And Dad's like, who are you talking to? I'm like, I don't know, but it's ugly.
Era la misma rutina. Cada 15 minutos me levantaba de susto, hablando y peleando en lengua en contra de algo, sudando y temblando.
We tried to stick it out a little longer.
Tratamos de seguir peleando en contra de eso.
But I was just so weak. I was getting so weak that I couldn't even lift my head up off the pillow or out of my chair.
Pero estaba tan débil que no pude ni levantar mi cabeza.
So we decided to make another trip to Columbus, back to the doctor, back to the ER.
Hicimos otro viaje a Colombo, al hospital de Colombo.
But we didn't have an easy feeling about that hospital, so we went to the other major hospital in town.
Pero fuimos para otro hospital.
And I got there in the ER, and this doctor, the ER doctor, came up, and he was from India.
El doctor griego era de India.
And he walked up to me and he looked at me.
Él me miró y me dijo,
And he said, "We're running all kinds of tests on you and everything." He said, "I know they told you had typhoid fever, but there's no evidence. I know they said you had the flu, but there's no evidence of influenza in you at all."
y le digo que estamos haciendo exámenes, tú no tienes influenza, no tienes esa fiebre.
He said, "Have you had any inappropriate contact with an Indian woman?" I'm like, "No, I'm a missionary, thank you."
Me preguntó si
That's what they asked you.
tenía una relación íntima con otra mujer en India.
I said, "No, sir." I said, "I'm a missionary to India, and I was checking on our orphanages and our churches."
Yo le dije, no, yo soy misionero y estamos chequeando los huérfanos y las iglesias que estaban allá.
And he looked at me and he said, "We need you," and turned around and walked out to run more tests.
Y él me miró y me dijo, te necesitamos, y se salió del sol.
So when they came back, I was expecting, okay, what pill am I getting this time? What shot you gonna give me? I'm going home, you know, all that kind of stuff.
Yo estaba esperando que me dieran una pastilla o una vacuna.
He called Diana in there and said, "He's not going home, and it's gonna be a while. You need to go get his stuff."
Entró y le dijo a mi esposa que él no iba a regresar a casa, que tenía que traerse la ropa, que iba a estar aquí mucho tiempo.
So they took me into the hospital, and I went to infectious disease ICU.
Me pusieron en un cuarto de infección de virus.
And as I went up there to the, I think 11th floor, I forget which floor it's on now, but
Creo que era un piso alto, el 11, el piso 11 del hospital.
they were running every kind of test known they could run.
Estaban haciendo todos los exámenes que existían.
And as I started getting really weak that night, started feeling really bad that night, and as I started feeling real bad, they brought the floor doctor in.
Y esa noche me puse muy débil, mientras me estaba debilitando más y más, entró otro doctor en ese piso.
Everything's fading, right? It's all fading to black. It's fading. The colors are fading from the wall. Everything's fading to black.
Y en mi vista todo empezó a ponerse negro.
And these voices are saying, "Your God has forsaken you. You're not going to make it through this. You're going to die right here, right now."
Las voces me decían que Dios me había abandonado, que no voy a llegar a ver otro día y que iba a morir ahora.
And the floor doctor walked up and she looked down at me and she had cat ears.
La doctora que estaba ahí tenía oído de gato.
And I was like, let's go up, but it was Halloween.
Sí, pero se me olvidó que era Halloween.
I got admitted into ICU on October 31st. Another bad night.
Llegué al hospital el día de Halloween, otra noche mala.
So she kept on and she kept telling me that it's going to be all right. We're going to take care of you. And she said, "We're going to give you something for the anxiety." I couldn't stop shaking. I was like constantly shaking. It was like some hypersensitivity that another doctor told me triggered by my PTSD, which they later determined I didn't have PTSD. And there's a lot of it's this, but it ain't that. As we're wrapping this up, we're going to get back to the more spiritual side. But she was telling me, so she gave me a shot of something, and I went to sleep.
Ella me dio una vacuna de una medicina para la ansiedad y eso me durmió.
And I woke up in a fit in the room, you know, covered with sweat again. I had oxygen in my nose. I had all the beepies and all that stuff going on. The thing on my finger, all of the whole 9 yards in a room by myself in the infectious disease place.
Y nuevamente me levanté con sudor y con temor, lleno de suero y con el ruido de la máquina ahí.
Diana showed up and they were trying to explain to her what was going on. And I could only have one visitor, and I was just so sick and so weak. And I was trying, if I could look at her, I could remember her name, but when I looked away, I couldn't really, the names wouldn't register and all of that stuff. But I had my phone with my text that said, I love you, from my wife.
Durante todo esto, yo mientras miraba a mi esposa me acordaba de su nombre, pero ya cuando no la miraba no me acordaba de nada. Pero tenía el mensaje que ella me había mandado cuando estaba en India que decía te amo.
And I had my cross.
Y tenía mi cruz.
And I just kept running.
Y seguía orando.
That's all I could do.
Es lo único que podía hacer.
And as I continued to, and I'm going to fast forward a little bit because for time, but I kept getting worse, and they brought in the best specialist they had for infectious disease, the best one in the city, the best one around in the county in this area.
Y me trajeron un especialista que era supuestamente mejor de la ciudad.
And he said, we don't know what you have right now, but we are going to fix you.
Me dijo que no sabía lo que tenía, pero que me iban a arreglar.
So as they started running their batteries of tests and everything, they kept telling me, get some rest, Mr. Garner, but they would wake me up every 15 minutes and take blood. How can I get rest if you're waking me up every 15 minutes, right?
Me decían que descansara, pero cada 15 minutos entraban a sacarme sangre. ¿Cómo podía descansar así?
I got to know them very well. I affectionately called them the vampires because that's all they did was come take my blood.
Yo lo llamo los vampiros porque lo único que hacían era sacarme sangre.
And after a few days of this, Diana came and the doctor came back and he had a smile on his face.
Y pasaron días y un día entró mi esposa y el doctor sonriendo.
He said, I found the problem.
Me dijeron que encontraron un problema.
You have malaria.
Tiene malaria.
Malaria. I said, well, but the other doctor said I had typhoid fever.
Pero el otro doctor me dijo otra cosa.
And the other doctor said I had a bad case of influenza.
Y el otro me dijo que tenía influenza.
He said, neither one of them are right. There's no antibodies. There's no, but a trace of those. You have malaria.
Y él me dijo que yo no estaba en lo correcto, que no tenía ningún virus de esos, que tengo malaria.
Here, start taking these pills. Malaria pills, yay. They nasty. So I started taking the malaria pills, and I'm excited. Me and Diana's talking. We're going to get over this. We're getting out of this. Meanwhile, the voices are screaming in my head, you're never going to walk out of this. Your God is forsaking you. And every time I prayed, all I heard was God would tell me, this is not unto death.
Y mientras tomaba la pastilla, nos emocionamos que íbamos a salir de ahí. Mientras pasa todo esto, las voces me seguían diciendo que Dios me abandonaba. Y mientras oraba, el Señor siempre me decía que esto no era para muerte.
So I said, I need some help. I need some serious prayers. Can you call the senior pastor?
Yo le dije a mi esposa que necesitaba muchas oraciones, que llamara a mi papá para hablar con él.
So him and Diana tagged out, and he was able to come in.
Entonces, como solo podía tener un visitante, mi esposa se fue y me quedó mi papá.
And he prayed for me, except when he came in, from head to toe, he was blue.
Entonces él entró y oró por mí, pero yo estaba todo azul.
They made him wear the little paper suit with the paper booties and the blue paper and the blue mask and all the blue stuff. And I was like, I'm trying to look at the end of the bed like, who is this?
Él estaba completamente cubierto de azul como protección.
And he asked me as he got ready to pray, he said, do you think you're going to die?
Y él me preguntó antes de orar que si él pensaba que iba a morir.
And for the first time in my life, I said, yes.
Y por la primera vez en mi vida dije sí.
I've been through scarlet fever.
A mí me dio otro tipo de fiebre.
I've been 800 feet underwater. I've been in all kinds of situations you can imagine and never thought I was ever going to die.
He estado en muchas situaciones peligrosas y nunca pensé que iba a morir.
But for some reason, I couldn't shut up fear and doubt.
Pero por una razón no podía callar el temor ni la duda.
And the senior pastor took a breath and he paused and he looked up and he was praying.
Y mi papá respiró y miró para arriba y empezó a orar.
And he said, no,
Y me dijo que no,
you're going to get through this.
que iba a salir bien.
And I'm thinking, woo, I'm fixing to be healed.
Yo dije que iba a sanar.
2 years later, no.
2 años después, no.
Yes. But I had hope.
Pero tenía esperanza.
And remember the scripture we read, right?
Como dice la Biblia,
We have to walk by faith, not by sight.
que andamos por fe, no por vista.
Everything was telling me you're done.
Todo me decía lo contrario, que iba a morir.
Every spirit from hell
Todos los espíritus me decían que iba a morir.
was telling me. So after he prayed,
Y después de orar,
he left.
él se fue.
And as the night started falling,
Y ya cuando llegó la noche,
something came into my room.
algo entró en mi cuarto.
There was a dark figure.
Era una sombra.
Have you ever seen a monk's robe before? The monk's robe with a hood thing?
¿Han visto las monjas, los trajes que se ponen?
It was not a good thing.
No era nada malo.
It came into my room. You couldn't see its face, but it had that robe, right? That robe look.
Yo no podía ver la cara, pero sí vi el traje.
And it stood in the corner.
Y se quedó en una esquina.
And the fear and the anxiety all tried to overwhelm me, and it said, he's here for you.
Y la ansiedad y el temor me decían que él está aquí para mí.
And I'm in a bed in ICU with everything on the man hooked up to me.
Y yo estoy atado en esa cama.
Where am I going to run?
¿Dónde voy a correr?
So I just kept praying.
Yo seguí orando
And I kept trying to focus on things.
y traté de enfocarme.
And meanwhile, outside of the door, there was like these other dark shadows, smaller.
Y afuera del cuarto, de la puerta, yo veía otra sombra más pequeña.
And they would dart in and out to this big thing, right? In and out the doors and around.
Y entraban y salían y se movían de lado a lado.
But they never came close to my bed.
Pero nunca se acercaron a mi cama.
It was almost like they were receiving orders from this thing, right?
Era como si estuvieran recibiendo órdenes de la sombra más grande.
And ordinarily, I would jump up, throw it all over, and say, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus, I'm good to go.
Si yo estuviera bien, estuviera tirándole aceite y
But for some reason,
reprendiendo. Pero por una razón,
this stuff is not going away.
no se iba.
It's like I had to walk through the valley of the shadow of death.
Era como si estuviera caminando por el valle de sombra de muerte.
So I went through a whole night of battle with all the stuff going on and all the craziness going on and all this happening, and got up the next morning. I was not any better, and the doctor came back in, and he wasn't as happy as he was before.
Y toda esa noche estaba batallando con esa sombra y por la mañana el doctor entró y no se veía tan contento como antes.
And Diana showed up, and he gave us the report.
Y cuando mi esposa entró, él empezó a hablar.
You do not have malaria.
Me dijo que no tenía malaria.
There's no trace of malaria.
Que no hay nada en mi cuerpo que diga que tenga malaria.
There are no antibodies in your body related to malaria.
No hay anticuerpos que dicen que tiene malaria.
You do not have typhoid fever. You do not have the flu. You do not have malaria. All these are diagnoses that I had, right? So all of these say, we do not know what you have, but we will fix you.
Me
Okay.
decían que no sabían lo que tenían, pero que me iban a arreglar.
All right. So all of this stuff was happening, right? And the spirit realms was troubled. Things were happening in there. We're going to move from the hospital in just a second to our home, and then we're going to wrap it up because we're getting tight on time here. But all of the things were going on in the spiritual realm, and the doctor came up to me and he said, we can't really figure out what's going on.
Y mientras lo físico pasaba esto, en lo espiritual se movían otras cosas.
And he told me, what we're going to do is we're going to put a PICC line in, and we're going to put the strongest antibodies we have in you, and we're going to see if that works.
Y lo que me dijo el doctor era que me iban a meter un suero con una medicina la más fuerte que tenían ahí.
I said, a PICC line, cool. What's a PICC line?
Él me dijo una palabra que no sabía lo que era.
what a PICC line is, P-I-C-C, what a PICC line is they slice open your artery and they shove this thing or major vein up into your heart, and you've got this tube going all the way up into your heart, right? They have to do a mini surgery to get it there.
Lo que él me dijo era un suero que llegaba hasta una vena muy grande en tu corazón.
Right, so they did that. I'm like, okay, first I don't like needles. Second, I don't like big needles, and you're going to cut on me and put a needle?
Ya eso me dio miedo porque no me gustan las vacunas.
So they did, and they started pumping all this stuff in, and they came in, they told us, this is the weird stuff. They told us, they said, okay, if you pull it out, you will die. You will bleed to death before we get here.
Y me estaban metiendo esa medicina, y mientras eso me dijeron que si yo saco esa vacuna, que iba a morir, que me iba a desangrar.
If you get it dirty, you will die.
Que si lo ensucio, voy a morir.
If you get an air bubble in it, you will die.
Si hay una burbuja de aire, iba a morir.
If you get it wet and disease gets in it, you will die.
Hasta si lo mojo, iba a morir.
And I'm going, how is this helping me?
Y yo me preguntaba cómo eso me estaba ayudando.
They said it's the only way we can get this strong antibiotics to your heart. So that's what they were doing. They're pumping it in.
Pero era la única forma que iban a meter esos antibióticos en mi corazón.
He said, this will work.
Me dijo que iba a funcionar.
A few days later,
Días después,
it did not work.
no funcionó.
He came back and said, I'm not really sure what's going on. And that's when Diana got involved.
El doctor entró nuevamente y me dijo que no sabía lo que estaba pasando y ahí se metió mi esposa.
She said, you don't know what's going on?
¿Tú no sabes lo que está pasando?
And he said, no. She said, I thought you were best.
Y ella me dijo, yo pensé que tú eras mejor.
And he went from smiling and said,
Y se le fue la sonrisa al doctor.
he said, we don't know what you have, but we're going to send you home.
Él dijo, no sabemos lo que tiene y te vamos a mandar a casa.
We have you stabilized,
Está estabilizado.
best we can do.
Es lo mejor que podemos hacer.
We're going to give you antibiotics through your PICC line every 8 hours that your wife will have to administer.
Te vamos a dar antibióticos en ese suero que tu esposa te va a tener que dar.
So we got on the 8-hour cycle at home, and Diana learned how to push drugs legally.
Y cada 8 horas me metía esos antibióticos.
Yeah, but we got the instructions again. Remember, I'm 40 minutes from the hospital where we live. We got the instructions again. If you do this, you'll die. If you do that, you'll die. If you do this, you'll die. I'm like, there's a lot of dying there, dude.
Y me dieron ese papel, las instrucciones que me decían, si hago esto muero, si hago lo otro muero, todo, mucha muerte.
So we got home, and remember I got all my stuff there, all the things from India, and I'm going to wrap it up because we're going to do communion here.
Llegamos a casa y tengo todas las cosas que me dieron de India.
So I'm in my lazy boy chair in our living room because I can't get up, and she's running the IVs back and forth trying to help me do that. The only thing I can do is walk to the bathroom with my 1, 2, 3 step strategy, and from there it gets crazy.
Estoy en misión ahí en la sala y mi esposa me está dando los antibióticos. Y lo único que puedo hacer es ir al baño.
Before I left the hospital was when I got my breakthrough.
Antes de irme del hospital me di cuenta de algo.
The spirits, I told you, they kept telling me that you've been forsaken, that all of this stuff you're going to die. Your God has left you here out in the wilderness and all those things. Well, another voice came to me and it was saying all these things, and then it said, there is no God. When you faded out to black, you didn't see family and friends coming to get you and all that. Well, the reason was because I was dying. The spiritual warfare is my games, right? So all of this stuff was happening to me at this time, and that's when they made their mistake, because one of them was like, your God has forsaken you, and the other was like, there's no heaven and no God. So I'm like, contradiction in statement right there, because if there's no God, how can you forsake me? And that gave me hope.
Entonces, algo pasó con la cosa en mi mente, que uno me decía que mi Dios me abandonó y llegó otro que decía que no existía un Dios. Entonces se estaba contradiciendo y yo me decía que si no hay un Dios, ¿cómo me puede abandonar? Y ahí llegó la esperanza.
So I started playing This Is Amazing Grace by who?
Phil Wickham.
Phil Wickham. Oh my, I have it on loop. I would play it over and over in my ear while they were talking their noise and the thing over in the corner. It got nervous after I came to the realization that, oh, you done messed up. Because I done heard two things now, and now I know the truth, and the truth is going to what? Yes, sir. And I was on it then, and it got a little nervous, and it was so crazy. My whole room was destroyed in there. I had gloves and little swabs and all that everywhere on the floor. And I couldn't figure out what was going on with it. Why is it my room so dirty?
Y mientras me dio eso, yo estaba escuchando una canción que se llama Gracias Sublime en un audífono y me di cuenta que la sombra se empezó a ponerse nervioso. En el cuarto había un reguero.
The room was so dirty because the people that cleaned it, the Hispanic people and others, were afraid to come into my room because they felt something in the corner every time they poked their head in.
Había un reguero en el cuarto porque los hispanos que limpiaban ese cuarto no querían entrar porque veían la sombra, le dieron miedo.
They had to threaten their job and their lives to get them to come in at night and do the quick clean real fast.
Tenían que hacer su trabajo para que entraran a limpiar ese cuarto.
So when I'm home and we're doing all the medication and all of that stuff, we heard this big crash in the guest bedroom.
Y ya cuando estábamos en casa, escuché algo bien duro en el cuarto, como si algo se hubiese caído.
Now, I have a dresser that has a drawer that I keep all my tie tacks for my ties and all my clips and everything for my tallit and all that stuff in a drawer.
Y yo tengo un mueble que tiene mis accesorios de los trajes que me pongo.
And I have my oil and my holy water there beside it, you know, in case I need it.
Mi aceite y el agua santa que tengo, bendita.
Something had knocked over my oil and my water.
Algo me tumbó el agua bendita y el aceite.
Hit it so hard
Le dio tan duro
that it hit into my drawer.
que se cayó en ese mueble.
All of my stuff, my tie tacks and everything, exploded all over the room.
Y todo se salió de ese mueble.
Everywhere. I'm talking about a bottle. This is the holy water bottle.
Esa es la agua bendita.
Right? And the oil is even smaller.
Y el aceite es más pequeño.
Some of my stuff I never found.
Y algunas cosas ni encontré.
It was everywhere. But as soon as it happened, I jumped, and that fear just dove on me, right? If I would walk 6 feet of mat, anxiety would start getting so bad that I couldn't even get close, and all the stuff be screaming in my head, and the pressure, and all of the whining, and all of the things at one time was going. But I still tried to keep walking. I still pressed it because I had my answer.
Entonces vi un brinco y el temor me brincó encima.
All the stuff was everywhere.
Todo lo que tenía en ese mueble estaba por todo el cuarto.
And we said, "You're not welcome in our house. We rebuke you in the name of Jesus. You know what you do."
Y yo empecé a reprender.
So the next night, I'm trying to doze back again in my chair, and I start getting my knees, because my knees hurt sometimes because of all the years of sports. So I try to get up and walk around a little bit, and I walked back into the guest bedroom, and I looked up, and we have a mantle in there, you know, fireplace mantle.
La noche siguiente me estaba tratando de dormir en la silla, en el sillón, pero mis rodillas me empezaron a doler, entonces me paré a caminar en el cuarto y tenemos como un mantel en el cuarto.
And on the mantle, I have books.
Y encima de ese mantel tengo libros.
These are some of the books that I have on there.
Esos son algunos de los libros que tengo ahí.
And something said, "Look at the books."
Y algo me dijo que mirara los libros.
And I looked up, and this book here,
Y miré y vi ese libro en específico.
it's called Baptist Doctrine. It's a black book. You can tell most of them are the brown and other colors, right?
Es un libro, ese libro negro es la doctrina de los bautistas.
It was upside down
Estaba virado.
in there. I'm like, Diana.
Y yo llamé a mi esposa.
And it said, "See, you don't have any authority over me."
Y dijo que no tenía autoridad sobre mí.
So I went over there, and I took my book, and I turned it back around.
Y cogí el libro y lo miré.
And I started praying again. I was like, "God, we bound this thing."
Y empecé a orar Y yo le dije, Dios, pero si nosotros lo atamos.
But what I didn't know at the time
Y lo que no sabía
is that if there's spiritual attachment to like garments or portals open,
es que si hay un espíritu atado a un como ropa,
other things can come in.
otras cosas pueden entrar.
Remember, it's a mind game.
Es un juego de mente.
So we rebuked and bound that spirit,
Nosotros reprendemos y atamos un espíritu.
but his twin snuck in the back door and pretended to be it, right?
Pero un gemelo entró en el portal y empezó a pretender que era ese mismo espíritu.
So yes, I have power and authority, and I did bind that one. He out of here, but the other one's like, I'm him.
Y sí até a uno, pero entró otro que estaba pretendiendo ser ese mismo espíritu que ya había atado.
Mind games.
Un juego de mente.
For the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but spiritual in nature, right? And the enemy tries to attack your mind. You got to keep casting that stuff down. You got to keep believing. I would get up in the hospital. I was in the hospital. I was in ICU for 11 days, and I was in the hospital for 2 weeks. And I would go to the mirror, and I'd look at myself in the mirror, and I'd be like, wait a minute. I don't even recognize that guy because I lost 40 pounds, and I was scraggly faced, and my hair was a mess, and I don't like my hair to be a mess. My hair was a mess, and all of that stuff was going on, and all that craziness. And when I looked at my wife, and she'll tell you that she didn't recognize me, did you?
No.
I was not the same person, was I?
Después de haber estado por 2 semanas en el hospital, cuando me miré al espejo, vi que era otra persona totalmente, había perdido peso, no me podía reconocer, aún mi esposa no me podía reconocer.
And I said, I looked in the mirror, and I would fuss at myself, and I'd say, you have your answer from God. You will live and not die. You will inherit the land. And I would just, any scripture that I could figure out, Jesus wept. I was using whatever I had, right? Because it wasn't really coming to me.
Cuando me miré al espejo me dije yo mismo, tú tienes la respuesta que te había dado el Señor, tú tienes la palabra, tienes la escritura, ¿qué más te está pasando que no puedes responder?
But I was trying.
Pero estaba tratando.
So after that happened, things, just crazy stuff kept happening. I would walk outside. Diana, when we got ready to go get on the ambulance, we were getting ready to go out to the car, and as we walked down the steps, the whole car was covered with black flies all over the car. They were all over the car, and it's like black flies. We live in the country, and we're used to a fly here and there from cows, but they were all over. You had to brush them off the door handle to open it.
Luego de que me pasó eso, seguían pasando cosas raras, cosas locas. Cuando iba de camino, saliendo de la casa de camino a la ambulancia estaba totalmente cubierta de moscas. Estaba tan cubierta de moscas que tenía que como rasparlas para sacarlas del carro. Aun cuando vivimos en el campo, no se supone que hubiesen tantos.
Parlor tricks and mind games, right? So we would do that, and I started feeling a little better. So I walked outside, and by our house we have a small pond with water flowing up on the rocks, and we have oversized goldfish that look like fat pigs with fins. You ever seen those?
Luego de que pasó eso, yo salí afuera de la casa porque me estaba sintiendo mejor, y en la casa tenemos como un laguito que tiene peces grandes que nadan alrededor.
And I walk by there because I like to hear the sound of the water, and I like to see the little fishies, as they eat stuff. And I walked by there, and the enemy said, watch what I can do. And I looked over there, and 7 of the biggest ones floated up to the top and were dead.
Y cuando caminé alrededor del lago, que me gusta mirarlo, el enemigo me dijo a la mente, mira lo que yo puedo hacer. Y cuando miré nuevamente, los peces, 7 de ellos, los más grandes, estaban volteados boca arriba muertos.
And I always do the 91st Psalm, leaving my house and coming back, right? I do the 91st Psalm for protection and things. But when I would get to the edge of the hardtop, and I would start to quote, because remember, I couldn't remember. So I read it out of the scripture.
Yo siempre leo el Salmo 91 para protección, y cuando estaba en ese momento porque siempre es lo que me ayuda a sentir la protección, pero trataba de leerlo y lo tenía de frente.
Ravens would come and fill the trees, and they would squawk louder than I could talk, and I'd be like, And you know how a bird, you can say, get out of here, and they fly off? They would be like, who are you?
Aún así había como ruidos en la madera que uno lo escucha fuerte, pero en ese momento ni siquiera podía dejar de escucharlo.
But we kept praying, and we kept pushing.
Pero seguíamos empujando y seguíamos presionando con la oración.
And I started going through all my stuff from India, and I would take it and box it up and get rid of it piece by piece by piece.
Y comencé a buscar entre todas las cosas que tenía de mi viaje a India y empecé a salir de ellas una por una.
When I got to that blue coat
Y cuando llegué al jacket azul,
with a brooch,
con el broche que me había regalado,
I folded it up, put it in a bag,
lo doblé completamente, lo puse en una bolsa
and got rid of it. It went to the dump. Oh, it was beautiful too.
y lo boté totalmente, lo tiramos a la basura, pero era precioso.
And things in my house calmed down.
Y todas las cosas en la casa se comenzaron a calmar.
I was still not out of the woods. I was still sick, still feeling bad. So my doctor sent me to an ear, nose, and throat specialist because the ringing and all that made it.
Todavía no me sentía bien, todavía me sentía enfermo y el doctor me mandó a un especialista de la nariz, a un otorrinolaringólogo.
He said, you don't have no problem with any pressure in ears, but it looks like your nose has been broke.
El doctor le dijo, tú no tienes ningún problema con los oídos, ni presión ni nada, pero pareciera que tu nariz estuvo rota.
No, my nose has not been
Y
broke.
él le dijo, no, mi nariz no se ha roto.
So I had a broke nose,
Entonces tenía una nariz rota,
typhoid fever,
fiebre de tifoidea,
flu.
la influenza,
I had
Malaria.
malaria. Yes. I had unknown, something that nobody needed. They're going to shove this thing in me.
y algo que nadie sabía que era lo que tenía.
But none of that stuff was registered. It's not real, or God healed me from it. Nobody knows.
Pero nada de eso estaba registrado porque nadie sabía y él decía, ¿será que Dios me había sanado?
But it was so bad that when I was able to drive again, I would always plan out routes to the hospital because my blood pressure was 200 over 100. Not good.
Estaba tan enfermo que cuando logré manejar por primera vez, al principio mi presión sanguínea estaba en 200 y algo.
It would settle down, and then the anxiety stuff, and it was 200 over 100. And Doc's like, I don't know. Try this pill.
Y bajaba y subía de momento la presión.
So they sent me to a psychiatrist
Me mandaron a un psiquiatra
who gave me anxiety medication
que me dio medicina para la ansiedad,
that did nothing but make me feel fuzzy.
pero no me hizo nada más que hacerme sentir como...
You can tell when the medication is for you and it works.
Tú puedes saber cuando un medicamento es para ti y funciona,
Because medication is good in essence.
porque la medicina es buena.
But I knew it wasn't for me. It was just masking the problem.
Pero yo sabía que no era para mí, no me estaba funcionando para el problema.
So I'm dealing with all this, and what really brought me out of everything is that I had good support from the church.
Y pasando por todo esto, lo que me acuerdo es que lo que me ayudó era que tenía un buen apoyo de la iglesia,
Because I was still trying to preach.
porque todavía estaba tratando de predicar.
We were still having meetings in the back.
Todavía teníamos las reuniones en la parte de atrás.
But if somebody came this close to me, everything would just go hypersensitive. When I walked outside and it rained, you feel rain, it's like, oh, this is cool. It stung, everything, it burned.
Pero aún cuando estaba tratando de hacer todo, cuando las personas se trataban de acercar a mí, sentía como que estaba desesperado, como que sentía que estaba lloviendo como fuerte.
The doctor said hypersensitivity. I was like, I don't know what it is, but it don't feel good.
El doctor dijo que era una hipersensibilidad y él dice, yo no sabía qué era, pero no se sentía nada de bien.
So, months into this fight, I was so tired and so weak and everything, I laid down on my porch swing to feel a little bit of coolness of the sun.
Meses después de esto, yo estaba tan cansado y tan quebrantado que me acosté en el porche de afuera a tratar de descansar.
And I said, Lord, I need some help from this.
Y le dije a Dios, necesito ayuda.
And I felt a warmth come over me like I haven't felt in a while.
Y sentí como un calentón viniendo donde mí, como algo.
And as it did, it felt like the face of the Lord came down and his face was in my face and he said, this is not unto death.
Y sentí como el mismo rostro del Señor se puso sobre mí y me dijo, esto no es para muerte.
So I started getting better, and I started getting all my minister friends and anybody that dealt with demonology and anybody that dealt with spirituality and any minister that I knew that I trusted, and I started reading up on everything, and I started getting all my knowledge together because knowledge is power, right?
Y comencé a hablar con mis amigos, con los ministros, con los que sabían de demoniología, con todas las personas, porque saben que el conocimiento nos da poder a nosotros, y comencé a informarme.
And I started pushing back and I started fighting back.
Y comencé a dejar de pelear.
And this is when COVID kicked in.
Y aquí
COVID.
fue que llegó el COVID.
They shut down everything and all that, but our works, where we work, is essential services. So we have to have a small company because we're a small church. Well, we kept working, didn't we?
Y la compañía que tenemos, aunque es una compañía pequeña, siempre siguió trabajando porque son servicios primarios. Durante el COVID estuvo trabajando.
As I kept praying, one of Gabe's mentors came from Florida to pray with me, and he was one of my best friends. He was a great guy, and he prayed with me through my crisis time, and he helped me get a little closer. And his specialty was demonology and people that was oppressed, right? He would pray with them and push away the oppression and all that kind of stuff. And him and his wife came and prayed for me, and as they did, this was part of my healing process, my getting better process. He was a super guy.
Y vino un amigo mío que es especializado en demoniología, vino con su esposa, es una persona muy nice que se especializa en todo esto y vinieron a donde nosotros.
He was a super guy, and during COVID, he got sick. And we were praying for him at the church, we were praying, and he passed away.
Y cuando comenzó el COVID, él murió.
So the enemy's telling me, look, I did that to him, I did it to you.
So el enemigo me estaba diciendo en mi mente, le hice eso a él, te lo puedo hacer a ti.
But Diana and I would do communion every day.
Pero Diana y mi esposa y yo comenzamos a tomar la comunión a diario.
We had seen Joseph Prince on TV. I don't know if you know him.
Y comenzamos a ver a Joseph en la televisión.
But he has the communion where you take it every day, and you can get healthier and healthier because of communion. That's kind of one thing he believes, which works.
Una de sus creencias es que si tú tomas la comunión todos los días, cada día te pones mejor y te sanas más.
Which is, we're going to do communion at the end of the day. But if you see, this is the book, because remember, I couldn't remember anything. So I would read it out of the book and see that's how much I use this book, is that all the pages fall out of this thing every time. So I have all of that going on. I got fingerprints all over it and pages coming out. But I kept doing communion and kept pressing all the while. Everything, now we're in crazy time, Matt. We're in crazy time with communion. Diana and I are doing communion, but COVID's out there running rampage now.
Y Diana y mi esposa y yo comenzamos a tomar la comunión diaria. Ese es el libro que él usa para tomar la comunión, que es el ministro Joseph. Y ahí fue que llegó el COVID.
And so 2 years after all of this, I walked out of it.
2 años después de que todo esto pasó fue que pude lograr salir de esto.
I had to keep believing.
Tuve que seguir viviendo.
I had to keep pressing.
Tuve que seguir.
But the enemy and situations in life was not done with me yet.
Tuve que seguir presionando, pero él sabía que la vida no se había terminado para mí.
We're coming on the end here.
Estaba terminando.
As I was getting better, I still couldn't remember that well, so I would write everything in my tablet when I taught or preached.
A medida que me iba mejorando, tenía que escribir todo porque no me acordaba de las cosas bien.
I got an invitation to be the keynote speaker at my son's graduation.
Tuve una invitación para ser el hablador principal de la graduación de mi hijo.
And I'll tell you how the enemy works. He works through good and bad.
Y le voy a decir cómo el enemigo trabaja.
Remember, the tongue is a two-edged weapon.
Recuerde que la lengua es una arma de doble filo.
It can heal or kill.
Puede sanar o puede matar.
So as we got ready to go, we went to the place where the ceremony was going to be.
Y nos empezamos a preparar y fuimos al lugar donde la ceremonia iba a efectuarse.
And I'm fighting my internal stuff, trying to remember still, right? I got I get that, okay.
Y estaba teniendo mis batallas internas para tratar de recordarme todo lo que iba a hablar.
And 5 minutes before the ceremony was to commence, my friend, Jake's mentor's wife, that he had passed away, his wife showed up and met me in the foyer.
Y 5 minutos antes de que la conferencia fuese a comenzar, la esposa de mi amigo, el que había muerto, llegó a ese lugar.
I thought she was going to go, yeah, do a good job and all that kind of stuff. Right?
Él pensó que ella llegó ahí para impartirle ánimo.
She said, I need to tell you something.
Me dijo, te tengo que decir algo.
I feel my husband's dead because you didn't pray hard enough.
Me dijo, yo siento que la muerte de mi esposo fue porque no oraste lo suficiente.
He prayed for you in your time of need and you didn't pray hard enough.
Él oró por ti en tus tiempos difíciles, pero tú no oraste lo suficiente.
I still love her. I still feel sorry for her, but that messed me up.
Yo todavía la amo, me siento mal por él, pero eso lo afectó a él.
I went to the back when they were doing the opening part of the ceremony. I went to the back room with Diana and I said, I can't do this anymore.
Me fui a la parte de atrás de donde iba a ser la ceremonia y me encontré con mi esposa y le dije, no puedo hacer esto nunca más.
And she said, yes, you can.
Y ella me dijo, sí, tú puedes.
And I went out and I made a big mess of it, but I did it.
Y yo salí y hice un reguero, pero lo hice, lo logré.
During the benediction, when I was supposed to be praying, I read my whole sermon.
Durante la bendición, cuando se suponía que yo estuviese orando, yo tuve que leer todo el sermón.
But I got through it.
Pero lo logré.
I don't hate her.
No la odio.
I understand she was hurting and suffering.
Entiendo que ella estaba herida y sufriendo.
But there is a time and place for everything.
Pero hay un lugar y un tiempo para todo.
So, mind games
El juego de la mente.
is what the enemy tries.
Es lo que el enemigo trata.
Because people will tell you you're schizophrenic,
Porque las personas te van a decir que eres esquizofrénico.
which some people are.
Y sí, hay personas que lo son.
People will tell you that, it's all in your head,
Y hay personas que te van a decir que todo es tu mente.
which it is for some people.
Que para algunos sí es así.
But you have to, through your discernment and your prayers and your actions, you have to figure it out.
Pero tienes que usar tu discernimiento y tus oraciones y tu fe y tienes que saber qué es lo que está pasando.
But I have never seen schizophrenia
Nunca he visto la esquizofrenia.
turn a book upside down.
Mirar un libro boca arriba.
And I've never seen it hit a lady in the chest and knock her over 3 rows of pews like I've seen other spirits do.
Y nunca he visto cómo voltean un armario completo y tiran todo hasta por arriba.
There are true people that are diagnosed from things, right? True things out there, really, that need medication, hospitalization. But we don't want to conflate the two. We got to be able to recognize the spiritual realm does exist and not try to put a pill on it.
Sabemos y reconocemos que hay enfermedades mentales, que hay personas que sí necesitan los medicamentos y los tratamientos, pero tenemos que aprender a diferenciar y reconocer cuando son cosas espirituales.
As I went through all the pills, all the medications, the PIC line, finally they took that thing out. I was scared to death to even sleep.
Porque yo fui con todo, a mí me dieron medicamentos, me dieron medicinas, me dieron líneas en las venas, pero nada de eso me ayudó.
Dad will tell you, I'm clumsy.
Mi esposa le puede decir soy torpe.
I'm clumsy. So I had to be real careful through the whole process. But I got a call a week ago from my bishop in India.
Pero hace una semana atrás tuve una llamada de mi bishop en India.
One of our pastors that worked the slums of a big town.
Uno de los pastores de las iglesias que tenemos en la ciudad de allá.
That just came across 60 kids who are eating out of trash cans.
Que logró rescatar 60 niños que estaban comiendo en la basura.
We now have a new orphanage with 60 kids.
Ahora tenemos un nuevo orfanato con 60 niños.
And by the grace of God,
Por la gracia de Dios.
the support of the church,
El soporte de la iglesia.
the support of my family,
El apoyo de mi familia.
I will be going back
Voy a ir de vuelta a India
to India in November.
en noviembre.
I will
Lo
go
haré.
back.
Lo haré.
We will take care of these kids. We will take care of the rest.
Vamos a tomar cuidado de estos niños y de todo lo que está sucediendo.
We can do it from here. We do with support. People support, send in, through our websites, through Cash App, Facebook, any of those things. People do send money in, and I'm asking that if it's in your heart, send it and help us help these kids and everything. But I will go back. I will.
Aunque lo podemos hacer desde aquí porque tenemos lugares de donaciones como lo es Cash App, Facebook, diferentes cuentas, se puede mandar el dinero, tenemos entidades que envían dinero y dan ofrendas, pero como quiera vamos a ir en noviembre.
We just sent sandals. We had our lead minister buy sandals for these kids because they're walking barefoot through the trash and garbage and all that stuff. We just bought sandals for them for $350. 60 kids $350 put shoes on their feet. That's not bad.
300 por $350 compramos sandalias para 60 niños porque ellos van y caminan por los basureros descalzos. Y por $350 solamente logramos comprar sandalias para 60 niños.
So we're going to pray, and as the money comes in, we're going to put clothes on their back, and we're going to give them a place to live. But this is just one of the things we do over there. And I don't have time to go into all the things because we're getting ready to do communion. But I just want you to know that some of the stuff that's affecting you is spiritual warfare and mind games.
Y vamos a seguir trabajando de esta manera porque queremos poner ropa y darle todos los cuidados necesarios a estos niños, pero ya que vamos a tomar la Santa Cena, lo que quiero que entiendan es que muchas de las cosas que nos están pasando son guerras espirituales.
I dealt with books upside down, noises, spirits in the corner, flies, ravens, dead goldfish, and all that kind of stuff. All of it was the enemy just trying to prove he's better. But our God is bigger, is better, is stronger. He is the true King of Kings and Lord of Lords. All that other stuff is just fake and pretend. He is real.
Amen. Todas las enfermedades, las moscas, los peces muertos, las voces, los libros boca arriba, era el enemigo tratando de engañarnos y volvernos locos, pero es nuestro Dios en esta batalla espiritual y en todas nosotros podemos ver que nuestro Dios es más fuerte, nuestro Dios es más grande.
I tell you this, as we get ready to go into communion, I tell you this not in bragging that look at what God did for me. I'm saying if God will do it for somebody like me, He'll do it for you.
Y digo todo esto no para exaltar mi nombre, sino para que tú sepas que si Dios lo hizo conmigo, lo puede hacer contigo.
Your situation is not hopeless.
Tu situación no está falta de esperanza, hay esperanza todavía.
If you're still in the middle of a spiritual battle, keep pressing.
Si tú estás en medio de una batalla espiritual, sigue presionando, sigue empujando, sigue luchando.
If you have to do like I did, come up with some counterattack in your mind.
Si tú tienes que hacer como yo hice, que tenemos que tratar de contar, hacer un conteo para esa batalla en tu mente, hazlo.
The 1, 2, 3 step, breathe, pray. If that's all you can get out, do it.
Si lo que te ayuda es comenzar a contar en tu mente 1, 2, 3, detente, ora y cree, entonces eso es lo que debes hacer.
Yes, so you can overcome this. Diana, come here, man.
Tú puedes lograr salir de esto.
Hallelujah. Amen. You guys ready for communion?
Estamos preparándonos para la
You
comunión.
still with me, right? It bore you to sleep? Okay. I know you probably got saddle sores, but it's all right. Hallelujah. Whole world, my rock.
Amen.
Yeah. Come on, Gabe. There's my son too. Get it on it. Come on, boy. He was having to deal with it, but he's looking like he stayed away from me because I was not me. It was like some other person was here, and the whole time I was fighting it out. I'd wake up every 15 minutes all sweaty and slobbery and fighting with somebody, and they're like, "Stay away from Daddy. He's having one of them." Yes, right. He's having a moment. Yes. So, yes, find somebody you can lean on. If you don't have a husband or wife or a boyfriend or girlfriend, lean on the church, man. We're your family. We're here for you. We're not going to laugh at you. We're not going to think you're crazy. After what I just told before the whole world right there, you're probably thinking, "Oh, that guy, no." But it's all true. It's all real. It all happened. It's all happening right now out there. Help somebody. Help one another. We're in this together. We're family. We're body. I love you guys, and I appreciate everything that you do for me and my household in India, and now Nepal, and the deep well in Africa that we put in, and all the missions work, but this is missions work. We're here, man. We're here with a purpose.